Thanks very much for watching. I talk a lot about balancing the books, all the rest of it, and that there are other options for people who are conservatives, libertarians, or people who think that owing, $600 billion is way too much, that expenditure going up by 97% in 10 years is a problem. One of the people who is committed to trying to do something about it, he believes in a balanced budget, and if you want to have a look at it, all of it, it's on his website, would be the Liberal Democrat Senator David Leyonhjelm, who joins us now from Canberra. Senator, don't you love it? They increased the credit card. Spending, as we've illustrated tonight, is 97% up on where it was 10 years ago. Nowhere near population growth, nowhere near business growth, nowhere near any sort of serious indices, yet most of the people who talk about politics in that building couldn't care less.
No, you're quite right. It's pretty sad. We're heading towards the cliff. We're not as close to the cliff as Greece or Italy or probably even America, although Trump might drag America back from the cliff. But you can certainly see the edge of the cliff from where we are. And if we don't do something about it, we will go over it, and it won't be pleasant. It'll be nasty.
So what does doing something about it look like for you?
Well, look, I've had an alternative budget in the Financial Review for the last 4 years, and this year, last year I talked about how everyone should take a haircut. So we've got deficits, we've got spending cuts required. We can't raise taxes anymore because they inhibit growth and you end up not raising much more money anyway. And so we have to share the load around. So in the 2016 alternative budget, I talked about everybody taking a little bit less. And if you spread the load around, there's no reason why it couldn't be quite tolerable. Nobody needs to suffer unduly. This year, I talked about the process of arriving at a budget. So I talked about bottom-up budgeting, which is something I'm very used to from business, from my background in business, where you basically say to everybody, don't assume that anything is going to continue the way it was last year. Start from the ground up, decide what you want to do, what you have to do, cost it, brick by brick by brick, and then that's your budget. And that's been done. It's a pretty painful process, I can tell you. But it's done every now and again in businesses with very good effects. You usually save at least 20 or 30% of costs. And interestingly enough, Jimmy Carter, probably perhaps now the second worst president that America's ever had, he actually did some bottom-up budgeting when he was president as well. Now the other way to approach it, well, you can do both of them, is top-down, where you decide this is how much money we've got to spend. This is the proportion of GDP we're going to spend, or the relationship with tax, or something like that. Just set a target and then say to all the departments that want to spend the money, you work out, you fight amongst yourselves how to divide that up. But there's no more than this aggregate amount. Now New Zealand does exactly that, and they come up with balanced budgets pretty much every year. So that was my suggestion. Now, I also would argue that this blaming the Senate, saying, oh, we can't get through our savings through the Senate, and they did do that in the budget papers, they blamed the Senate. So they've gone for the soft option of pinching all Labor's policies and implementing them, as you've been talking about it. It's nonsense. There are some seriously easy, low-hanging fruit to save money that they could have grabbed onto. They're really not that good at persuading the public or even persuading the Senate that savings can be made. Middle-class welfare is the classic, absolute classic. They could have easily gone for means testing or increasing means testing of benefits. Would have been impossible for Labor and the Greens and the crossbench to argue with it. And there's billions to be saved in all that.
And there was the story, of course, that Adam wrote based off a lot of the information that I know that you've been gathering for some time. There's $15 billion in the budget this year and every year to come that is welfare for foreigners. This is people, they're not living here. I mean, this is unbelievable here.
Yeah, it's extraordinary, that figure. I mean, I knew there was some, but I didn't realise it was that high. We got the Parliamentary Budget Office to cost that up. Not all of that $15 billion is salvageable if we cut off non-citizens from welfare. Some of that money, probably about a quarter to 20%, might be attributable to people who are from countries with which we have a bilateral social security agreement. So age and disability support pensions, if we live in their countries, we receive their pensions, and if they live in ours, they receive ours. But there's over 700,000 people who aren't from those countries who are receiving welfare, and they're not citizens. What are we doing that for? You know, that's $15 billion, well, probably $12 billion, $13 billion that I don't think we need to pay at all.
Yeah. Now, I want to ask about the obvious here, which is the shopping list of what you like and what you don't like, what you'll vote for, what you'll vote against. Do you know anything that if there was a vote tomorrow, you'd walk in and vote against it?
Oh, yes. The additional tax on the banks, the increase in the Medicare levy, the increase in cigar taxes and Rollies smokes. I need to put my glasses on just to check my notes, because there's one other there. Oh, there's a tax on employers who hire foreign workers. So they've said, well, we'll let you hire foreign workers still, which is important because they bring skills in that we don't have. But we're going to levy a tax on you, and now we're going to put that into traineeships and apprenticeships. The problem is, of course, that those companies which are employing those skilled temporary workers are not going to necessarily benefit from where that money is spent on traineeships and apprenticeships. It's just a tax on employment, basically. Now, I don't have a problem with giving Australians priority, but if you're going to let them in, there's no need to tax them when they do it.
Well, now look... yeah, sorry, keep going.
Yeah, so those are all the tax increases, and there's a number of spending initiatives that I find very questionable. The Sydney Airport I don't mind so much. Ultimately, that will result in competition between the Sydney existing airport and the new one, and that'll ultimately result in lower prices through competition. It was always a mistake, I think, when they privatised Sydney Airport, that they gave them first option over the second airport as well. But the inland rail, honestly, how on earth that could be justified in terms of taxpayers' money, I don't know. The private sector has got far too many brains to go putting money into a thing like that, and that's going to be billions, absolutely billions. Then there's the Snowy Hydro. Now, in South Australia, Tasmania, Victoria, New South Wales, the electricity generation process is all privatised. It's private companies that do that. Queensland and Western Australia have chickened out from doing that. So New South Wales, all the electricity generators are privatised except for Snowy Hydro. It's owned jointly between New South Wales, Victorian and federal government. So what is our government doing? Our liberal, pro-free enterprise, non-socialist, anti-socialist government, what are they going to do? Throw more taxpayers' money into this generator and not privatise it, not even think about privatising. Wash your mouth out if you talk about privatising Snowy Hydro. What a joke. That's $2 billion into that. They shouldn't even be thinking about doing something like that.
Now, look, I want to talk about the tobacco taxes, and it's easy for people to say, well, that's because you're a smoker, Paul, but there is actually a point to be made here. They make $2.3 billion out of beer, $4 billion out of the fringe benefits tax, $6 billion out of petrol taxes. Yet in this budget, $11.6 billion will come out of tobacco taxes. The following year will be 12.7, then 13.9, then 15.1. Let's be honest. The most addicted smoker in the country is the federal government, because while they bet on 10% drop, the tax goes up, up, up. They're the ones that are hooked. We don't put a tax on lead paint, we just banned it. We didn't put a tax on asbestos, we banned it.
Yes, indeed. Well, there's two aspects to the increasing tobacco taxes that you can criticise. One is that it's causing an illicit tobacco market. It's up to billions of dollars. The estimate is the government is missing out on around about $1.5 billion in excise. It's up to about almost 15% of the tobacco market, and this is by a legitimate methodology by KPMG that measures the illicit tobacco market. It's being smuggled into the country in containers. Apparently, I'm told that even if you import 10 containers and 9 of them get caught, the one that gets through pays for all the other ones and rewards you handsomely. And of course, it's a legal product. All they're doing is evading tax. It's not like an addictive drug. It's not like bringing in heroin or amphetamines or something like that. The other aspect about these high taxes on tobacco is that smokers, with the exception of cigars, which are mostly smoked by middle-aged men who are not poor, like you and me, Paul.
God forbid.
Yeah, but no, well, they're too expensive anyway. But cigarettes are smoked increasingly exclusively by low-income people, unemployed, Aborigines, drug addicted. Practically all drug addicted people smoke. Prisoners, ex-prisoners. People on very, very low incomes, they're really the bottom end of society. That's where the smokers are these days. Now, increasing taxes on those people, and that includes rollies, well, all it does is take money out of people who can barely afford it in the first place. And so they're on welfare. The vast majority of them are on welfare. What does that do? It leaves them less money to actually live properly. And so that puts pressure then via the various feedback systems on the government to increase the welfare payment. So it's a roundabout of money. It's ridiculous. You know, the pips are squeaking well and truly on tobacco taxes. It's high time they admitted that they've gone too far, and even if they disapprove of it, even if they think they're stopping people from getting lung cancer, they've gone way past that point.
I agree. Senator, thank you so much, mate. We'll make sure there's lots of information about your alternative budget and lots of other things there. Even when it's you against the world, I'm glad you're there. I really am. Thank you, mate.
Thank you.
Senator David Leyonhjelm of the Liberal Democrats.